Good morning, good day, good afternoon, depending on your location, and welcome to our weekly Wednesday broadcast here both on eBay for Business Facebook page and also embedded into the eBay community at community.ebay.com. So we have two audiences today. We welcome our community audience. We hope you enjoy our regular broadcast. Joining me today, well, first, let me tell you that this broadcast is all about the modern buyer, and today we'll be discussing the Millennial generation with Jen Deal. Jennifer, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Jennifer, welcome back to the show.
Thanks.
Now, before we get to that, I want to mention that we are aware of some ship tracking issues, and I just talked to the shipping team. They're aware of it. They're working on the fix. They've already scoped the issue, and my message back to sellers from the shipping team is not to worry on any impact on your top-rated seller status. All of these issues will be addressed and fixed, and your status will be maintained. And in particular, for those of you who aren't familiar, there are some sellers who have ship tracking showing as late delivery or late shipping when they indeed have shipped within their handling time as the acceptance scan shows. So again, that will be addressed, and your statuses will not be impacted. That's the good news. So Jen, welcome again. Let's get right into our topic. I wanted to ask you first, because we've already had this question, who are these millennials?
These millennials?
Yeah.
Well, they are the largest generation now coming up. And this is behind the baby boomers, who have previously been known as the largest generation.
Well,
so
we're
this
dying
generation,
off, so,
well,
okay.
no, let's not talk about it that way. So this generation was born between 1980 and just before 2000, or about 2000. So
about 20 years.
Yeah, so about 20-year generation span. And they are the largest because there's about 80 million of them.
Eesh.
And they're actually sometimes referred to as the echo boomers, because they will be bigger than the baby boomers, and they have some aspects of their behaviors that are just like the baby boomers, which we'll touch on a little bit, but that's who they are.
So roughly how much do they spend a year?
They're spending about $600 billion a year.
Of their money or their parents?
Of theirs.
Oh, okay.
I mean, within the first half of their lives, maybe their parents, as we'll see that trend with the next generation we cover. But that is projected to be about $1.4 trillion by 2020. So there's a couple of variables here that are important. One, because they're a very large population.
Mm-hmm.
Two, this population grew up in the digital age,
yeah.
Meaning, they were growing up during computers, internet, and more importantly, mobile. Right, and so they expect that to be part of their lives, and it is very much part of how they touch every aspect of their life and how they expect to. So all of those things are impacting how retail now measures up to what their expectations are, but not just retail, it's touching a lot of different industries. In fact, in our chat, and I don't know if the audience knows, but we posted this article yesterday, and we've had a live chat going since then. And in our chat, one of our community members said that one of the developers in Chicago actually changed their strategy on how they're developing their buildings and what they're tearing down and what they're building now, because this generation's behaviors are different, right? And so it's not just in retail where what they expect is impacting how people run their businesses.
So we know they spend $600 billion and soon more than $1 trillion. What's their mindset about shopping and spending? What are their habits like? What do they spend? What are they looking for? How do they feel? I'll give you an example. I know that my grandparents were the generation that came out of the Great Depression. Mm-hmm. That impacted the way they viewed money, spending, and thrift for the rest of their lives.
That's right. That's right. So let's touch back on that echo boomer.
Okay.
Perspective, because this generation grew up in a little bit of, they grew up in a recession, or they had a recession in their lifetime, not a depression, but a recession.
Yeah.
They are more educated than any other generation, and as a result, they also have more debt in education than anyone else. They have 300% more debt, and so they actually came into the market with less money. It was a little harder for them to get started. Things in the world that were happening were things like globalization and other disruptive things. So their mindset is similar to how baby boomers approach it. They're sensitive to cost, but they expect quality. They want quality items.
Oh, that's hard.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, sometimes that's a hard
I
combination,
want the best
right?
for the least amount.
Exactly. And then they also have this idea that they want it now, instant gratification. I think some of us thought of millennials as entitled at some point, but it's because they're used to that. That is what technology delivered to them. There's a lot of technological advances in their time.
So they're used to high velocity when it comes to
That's
fulfillment of need.
That's right.
Okay,
that's
that's
right.
good to know. So how important is social media and network to them, networking?
This is an important aspect for them. A little bit of myth busting we've done here, and we'll keep going with the social networking. Social networking is important to this generation, not because they just want to share everything, but experiences become part of what is important to them, and the experiences are things like, hey, I went on a hike this past weekend and I want to share my pictures, and I not only do I want to share my pictures, but now I also want to be engaged with whoever's on the other side of that social network. So they expect a conversation and direct conversation with not just their peers, but with brands, with other people they don't know but admire. So there's this thing about celebrity endorsements not being as important anymore, because this generation also is a generation that made YouTube popular, right? And brought a lot of YouTube celebrities or people that were much more about made everything authentic to them, right? These experiences are authentic. The brands or the products they talk about from a real person's perspective versus
someone who might be getting paid.
That's right. That's right.
So how do millennials feel about discounts? Now, I know that every generation, every human being loves a discount, but do they have a specific point of view that's different from other demographic age groups?
Well, because they're in more debt than anyone.
Yeah.
Okay, excluding if you were on the show last week, my generation, Gen X, we started off with nothing, and we have nothing still, apparently.
But we love you for it.
Thank you. But because they are cost conscious because of that educational debt, again, they are sensitive to price, but they love quality, so they look for discounts. They use their mobile phone and look for, and shop and use their phone for research of products, price comparison of products. There's a bit of brand loyalty once that brand establishes that they have quality and prices that particular buyer wants. But if they can find that same product somewhere else, so marketplace to marketplace, they'll go somewhere else to save that dollar.
So they may be they exhibit some brand loyalty, but not necessarily venue loyalty.
That's right. That's exactly
interesting
right.
to know.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know that a lot of people my age will pick a location. Like, I'm stubborn. I shop at eBay, and there may be some better deals out there. I just don't really ever look for them. I just stay on eBay. But that's different from millennials. They're more conscious. They're not as loyal to the venue.
That's right.
So how do millennials think about returns? We, those of us who grew up in the pre-internet world, had a specific expectation about the process, how we had to take items back to the stores.
Yeah.
Sometimes it wasn't pleasant. You didn't get cash. You got store credit. There may have been a restocking fee. How do millennials feel about this, and what are their expectations?
So this is the epitome of why we're talking about the modern buyer, because they've made us all change our perspective about what it is that we need to consider when we're running our business. Is it just the price of a merchandise? Is it just what the merchandise is? It's not anymore. It's a full experience. I talked about how the experience is so important to this generation, and it's everything that they experience, right? From convenience and flexibility. So when they're shopping and when they're looking and researching for things, convenience and flexibility are at the top of mind. And then that cost factor comes in, and that cost factor plays into shipping and returns. They're going to look for the cheapest return option. And there is a downside sometimes of things like when you shop online and you don't have a comfort level with a particular venue. For example, we just said they're not necessarily loyal to that venue, but they see several items that they want at a new place and they want to try it out. They might buy a few things and then decide that something doesn't work for them, and they're going to want to return it. And they're, again, about that convenience and flexibility. And so they're going to look for, can I return this? And can I just send it back free? as part of that service
Right.
that business is offering.
So that's a factor that will drive their ultimate decisions on where they're going to spend money and
That's
shop.
right. That's right.
It's good to know. So let's put this all together for eBay sellers. What does this mean for them?
So on eBay, it is something top of mind for all of us here in how we've looked at improvements on the platform. And it's not just for this generation. If you've watched the last few shows, there's a lot of similarities across the board that have been really driven because of way that technology has allowed us to shop. But this generation is, what's important to note is that the next few years for them are key spending years. Their life is changing in many stages and aspects in the next 5 to 10 years, right? They could be having a baby, they could be getting married, they could be buying a house, right? So if you think about that, think about the categories that you're in, and if you're a seller that wants to grow or expand, you can look at things like home and garden. Maybe I have a selection here that a millennial would want to purchase something from. Baby categories, pets even. I mean, maybe they're adult enough to to adopt a pet, and they'll need to buy some pet supplies. So all of these things are first and foremost, how is your product offering addressing that audience, if it's important for you to be relevant to them? How is it priced? How is it set up? The other side of this is they like simplicity. They do shop on mobile, and even if they don't make that purchase on their mobile device, more than 61% of anyone on eBay shopping is touching that mobile device. And so that means they're looking at the products here. And so simple listings, great images are super important here. Nothing that is unfamiliar but becomes increasingly important as time goes on.
So if I'm putting a listing together and I want to appeal to millennials, are there any things I should keep in mind?
Yeah, well, your clean listings.
Clean listings.
Clean listings. And how they search is important. So we talk about structured data a lot, and just being able to put in as much information into those input fields on your listing so that the search functionality is working for the buyer, and they're able to find things quickly and easily. And then, there's things to think about, too, as we kind of think about what we discussed just a few minutes ago about experiences. You might be doing some research on millennials yourself, and you might be thinking about, eBay isn't a place for experiences per se if you're looking at that as a product, but here's some things to consider. Their brand loyalty that comes into play, the experience, their lifestyle that comes into play. There are brands like Patagonia, for example. I mentioned that, they want to share maybe a hike they went on. Those hiking brands, those hiking products are things that you can sell on eBay. Yeah. And they will want to purchase, and it's just about having that available to them at markets.
So look for Patagonia. That's the message, right?
It's just a thought. It's how to play into how do I get in front of a millennial when I just sell products and they want an experience. Yeah. Well, think about the full spectrum. It's what are you offering? Does it feed into an experience that they want to enjoy? And then how are you setting that up for convenience and flexibility for them, right? And those are the choices you have to make as a seller.
I had one experience with millennials this year.
What's that?
So my husband Howard had a bunch of family members and their friends who were millennials. They came to the West Coast to go on a camping trip. Mm-hmm. They bought all of their stuff online, all the camping stuff. Yeah. And when they were finished, they didn't want it anymore. So they got rid of the stuff when they were done.
Did they sell it on eBay?
Well, they sold it in various venues. They gave some of it away. They gave some stuff to us and said, you sell it. We just don't want anything. We're done camping. And I was surprised because in my generation, we'd hold on to that in case we wanted to go camping again. It seems the mindset that I noticed was that these are things, we use them when we need them, and we're done with them, we get rid of them.
Yep.
And either get the cash out or just we don't have them cluttering our lives. That's totally different than my generation.
Yeah, yeah.
It was an interesting experience.
It's that simplicity.
Simplicity,
again.
exactly. Yes, right.
Yeah.
Well, are you ready to take some questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's ask our producer extraordinaire, Audrey, if she's got any questions, and Alan. So Alan and Audrey will be looking at the questions. Alan, thank you. You got any questions?
Yeah, we have a couple of great questions on Facebook today. Justin's question, he's wondering if millennials want faster shipping or the best value in shipping.
That's a great question. Okay, it's both, and here's why. So I will say that if I want a product and shipping is charged, it doesn't matter to me, and I'm saying me as if I'm a millennial.
Yeah, I get it.
But yeah, it's not going to matter. I mean, as long as that shipping price isn't more than the item or isn't extremely outrageous in my mind, because perception is reality, I will pay for that shipping. But my first choice will be free shipping, given all things are equal,
Yes.
right? So if I can find this product at the price and somewhere else, and somebody else is giving it to me for free shipping, I'm going to take the one with free shipping. So that's one of those things where if you think about what your product assortment is, it's how unique is that product, or how competitive is that product versus anyone else on the market. Who else has it, and what are they charging?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. And, one thing I'm sorry, Justin, I'm just going to keep going on. But one thing that worked for me recently is offering shipping discounts with bundles.
Yes, using the
Promotions manager.
Yes,
right.
right.
I am so excited about how it's working for me right now.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's very good.
Yeah.
So if you're not, so they millennials like promotions.
They do.
And
Remember, they like discounts.
The discounts come in with the promotions.
Yeah,
That's
and
good
see,
to
and
know.
I charge shipping on my items
Yeah.
because I don't have a good enough margin, or I can't figure out
Sure.
the cost. But I do promotions in the store.
That helps.
Yeah. Next
Any
question.
other questions, Alan?
Steve from Facebook writes, what is eBay doing to convince millennials to shop here?
Well, that's part of our advertising and marketing campaign.
That's right.
I'm not sure how much information about that you have. You
Well,
do?
we can talk about Fill Your Cart with Color, right?
Well, that's been our big campaign.
That's been our big campaign. We did a global brand launch last year, so all of eBay around the world is behind this message. And then there's a piece of the ad. One of my favorite ads out of that campaign is "Did you check eBay?" which we ran over the holiday season, and I love that because it's really direct. And they're funny, and they're oriented in this voice and imagery that works for the millennial, right? So.
And without giving away any specific data, because we can't really do that on the show, but have we seen positive results when it comes to
Absolutely.
bringing millennials to eBay for the first time?
Absolutely. Actually, what we can say, because this is public information, is just last quarter we had 5% growth in active buyers last year. So we continue to see growth year over year, and so that just means, and these are new buyers coming to the site. The experience is evolving. They're engaged with it. We have a lot of that advertising content that runs into places where the buyers are, where those millennials are. So we're going where they are. We're in social. We're in Spotify. We're on Snapchat. We're in places where they are, so they understand who we are.
So we're still top of mind.
That's right.
That's the important part. Any other questions, Alan and or Audrey?
Yep. Daniel on Facebook is looking for some insights. He's wondering what are millennials particularly looking for? So products or categories where they might shop.
Yeah. Because I know one they don't shop in.
Let's not talk about that. No. Actually, I'm curious. Where don't they shop?
So the research has shown, outside of just what happens on eBay, but in general, that millennials don't want their parents' stuffy old collectibles.
Okay.
So they're not buying some porcelain teacups. They're not buying brown furniture. Brown furniture being a wide
It's
range
gray.
of.
Gray is the color.
They want gray furniture.
Gray, lavender.
They don't want the old wood stuff. They don't want your mother's Chippendale, Hepplewhite, Sheridan dressers and tables. It's all too fuzzy for them.
Okay. Well, the fashion is big.
Fashion,
Fashion is big, which is probably why they're not so much in the antiques, because brocades are not popular right now. But health and beauty within the fashion category and health and fitness items are super big categories with growth, right? So not necessarily that popular 5-10 years ago. Many more brands are coming out. Many millennials are generating some of those popular brands. So health and beauty is a category that's particularly popping. But fashion, home and garden, electronics are always going to be the top ones because that's where change happens the most. And then sporting goods is another area as people go out and do those different experiences and buy camping gear and apparently get rid of it. You might see some growth there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a brand new Coleman camping refrigerator in my backyard that they just left there. I guess I should sell it on eBay. It's back.
There you go.
Yeah, I will. I won't send them the money, though. I'll charge them the storage fee.
There you go. Okay.
Okay, another good question from Rich. Are millennials always looking at price only, or are there other things that they're looking at aside from the price?
Give me for value.
Value.
Yeah, or an experience, yeah.
Would you mind repeating the question? Some folks can't hear Alan.
Oh, yes. So the question from that Alan was reading was, are millennials mostly interested in just price as value, or are there other value propositions that matter to them?
There's absolutely other value propositions that matter to them.
Well, we talk about returns.
Yeah, right. So again, if you're buying an item and you want it, this is a savvy, educated audience. They are doing their research, and they're not doing the research just to find the cheapest price necessarily. They might be looking for cheaper options to get that item, like returns, like shipping, to make sure that they're sound in what they're doing, but they are not strangers to spending for the quality of an item, right? I know in our article we sort of make mention tongue-in-cheek about the avocado toast, and avocados are not exactly inexpensive, but
they don't travel well.
Right. But just to kind of put you in that mindset, it is fulfilling, if we use avocado as an example,
Sure.
It is fulfilling the needs of that millennial buyer in other ways, and that's what they really want.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a great question, because we hear this, we tend to focus right in on price. But I know from my own buying experience, and if you're a seller on eBay and you shop, you may, your value proposition that you have when you're looking for item A can change if it's item B. Mm-hmm. So some things I don't need quickly. I need something fast. I need something cheap, and I don't care if it gets here in 2 weeks. But I may need something, for example, for this studio, and I need it in 2 days. That I'll pay more. So that value proposition can change. Now that's me. I'm not a millennial, but that could be the same thought process.
Yeah, it's not a different process. Most purchases are emotional, right? And for that millennial, that's what they're thinking about. I mean, I have a category that I'm super familiar with that I sell in. Not a lot in this particular niche of that category, but if anyone out there is a planner girl or loves their planners, let's talk about what's happened in the last couple of years. It's like, for if you're Gen X, 5th grade came back for the millennials. Yeah. But there are millennials that have 2, 3, 4, 5 different planners, and they're purchasing products for those planners. So I did the math one day a couple years ago when this started coming out, because I was thinking about branching out into that product line. And every planner could be valued at the end of the year to $500 to $1,200 per planner, based on the number of items purchased for that. Now, each of the items is anywhere from $3 to $5 to $10, but they were buying something for every month, every day, every week. Different colors, pens, like stickers, pages, wraps, covers, and then you multiply that by 5, and you've got an incredible consumer right there.
Why would somebody have 5 planners? I don't understand.
Well, because you got one. So the millennials are very conscious about everything, right? And they have their mobile device to track things. But there's also we're not going to get into the depths of this in this conversation, but let's talk about the way they balance themselves with the simplicity of things. So sometimes pen to paper gives them this outlet, but then they track, like, there's one for fitness, there's one for every day, there's one for planning. They're just journaling and talking about my life experiences to myself, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I get it. It's a lot of planning. I was lucky if I jotted like a stick-it note, somewhere, a Post-it note.
I love Post-its.
Yeah, but I lose them; they fall off. I write something, and then a day later, I said, "What is this? What does this mean?" So it doesn't help. Any other questions?
2 more quick questions.
Okay, 2 more.
Justin asks, I think you guys mentioned clean listing earlier. So
yes.
He wants to know, what is exactly a clean listing?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know. Do you know?
Let's see what you say. I know. But go
Well,
ahead.
just nothing extraneous. So they want the item details, they want great photos, and they want the terms very clear. Mm-hmm. They don't want a lot of editorializing or someone like going overboard saying how wonderful the item is or giving a long, paragraph-long provenance of where it came from necessarily.
Yeah, I also don't think it is the 50 other items that you can purchase embedded in the bottom of your description. They don't like that. Again, in search, if something's coming up in search, it's because size was in there, color was in there. They're filtering. And when they see the title, it's got to be understandable. Sometimes I see titles and I see that you've picked up on the right keywords, but I don't actually know what the item is.
Right, I've seen that too.
The other thing that I'm going to mention actually came up this morning in a different conversation was eBayers that have been here for a long time have different acronyms, right? So NIB, new in box.
Yes.
Not everybody knows what that means anymore.
Yeah, it's true. Those
Right?
are old school.
So those are old school, and that's not necessarily important to say new inbox. You can just say new in the title if that is something. But keep it clean, and you can rearrange the way your keywords are set up. So, for example, in my Etsy store, I might actually put the brand of my product up front first, but on eBay I don't because the brands aren't known here. Sorry.
She said the E word.
Hey, I use competitive marketplaces like
For
everybody
research,
else.
for research. Yes, of course.
On eBay, that same product will actually be what the product is first, and I don't even always put the brand in the listing title because nobody knows what it is. I'll put it in the description.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because our search is different.
And one last related question. Chris writes, if I create an item specific, is it searchable?
Yes. If you create an item specific, so you made it up, it's custom.
It's
is what
custom.
the question
Or you
is.
just add, or you pick from the drop down.
If you pick from a drop down,
It's definitely
yes.
searchable.
If it's something that's eBay provided, it's searchable. My understanding is if it's not something eBay provided, it's informational, but it's not searchable.
Until others provide
I think there's an
the same
adoption
thing,
point
right?
where we then adopt it, but we don't specify when that is.
Right, because I'm going to say in fashion, for example, where we don't have different things auto-populated, like you might put in Circle One, right, which is a brand for a men's sweater, and not anyone else has put that in yet.
Well, that's
or it's not
different.
in catalog.
But the brand item specific category is eBay created. So if you add an item specific to that, enter your own, that is searchable.
Okay.
But if you create a item specific from scratch, which is you
Oh,
creating
I
it
see.
as a total new item specific, that isn't necessarily searchable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I learned
That
something.
answer your question? And with that, our producer is giving me the spinning finger, which means wrap it up, Griff. Thanks, Audrey.
Wrap it up.
Right, I am wrapping it up. So our regular housekeeping, for those of you who are joining us in community, I want to welcome you and thank you. Yes, eBay community is more than just words and typed text. It's also video now. So I hope you're enjoying it. We'll do this every Wednesday. Be sure to read the eBay for Business blog at eBay for Business. Blog.com. And thank you. And also follow the Facebook page for eBay for Business. There is such great information there. If you're not using it now, explore our entire community section, including our seller news and seller information center. And there's also, I think, a link for eBay Radio, which leads me to my next thing. Listen to eBay Radio every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific. For 2 hours on Thursday, 3 hours on Tuesday, and we have a great time. You can call in, we dish your listing, we have industry guests on. People tell me, people are saying it's a fun show. I don't know, is it? I guess so, so give it a listen. And
Can I do a plug?
you can do all the plugs
Okay.
you want, Jennifer.
So on the community chat, I will still be popping in and out of that chat through tomorrow. So if you have more questions about millennials or you want to discuss it, come over to the board and drop me a line. Okay.
Sounds like a good plug.
And thanks for having me here today.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Jen, and thank you for joining us. And for all of you who've been watching, thank you for spending some time with us today. I hope you got something out of it. We'll be back next Wednesday with our weekly broadcast. But until then, thanks and happy selling on eBay. Bye, everyone.